Hi, I'm Kevin Fleischman,
And I'm Marcy Robledo.
I'm Bo Alkizola.
and we are three programmers with the Over the Rhine International Film Festival in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And we are reviewing films and we're looking through them with the GenX lens. And we're also going to pair them up with films from our youth at the end of our reviews. So, Bo, would you like to get us started with Anatomy of a Fall?
Yes, I actually love to refer to this as its French title, Anatomy d'une chute.
Ooh la la.
Fancy.
But yeah, basically, dude is found dead, having fallen from the very top floor of his French Alps chalet, and his wife is the prime suspect. So, first off, I want to say Kevin and I were very fortunate enough to see this in Toronto back in September. So, and it was really, really fun because it was our first movie of the festival and Kevin's like first
Yes.
TIFF film
Yep.
ever.
Inaugural
So,
film at my
yeah,
inaugural TIFF. Never forget it.
Wow.
absolutely, absolutely. Uh, which makes it that much more memorable. Uh, I don't know. This is a very superb crime drama thriller. It's tense, and one of the things that I so love about it is that it seems irrelevant, whether or not Sandra, the writer, the wife, it seems irrelevant whether she did it or not, and because the trial makes her marriage very public, and you discover that they have somewhat of a complicated marriage. So I think that's one of the beauties of the film. Also, a brilliant performance from Milo Mikado Grainer, who plays their 11-year-old son.
Mhm.
Um, he is the character is blind, and his dog, who is named Snoop in the film, his guide dog, also gives a stellar performance. He won the prestigious Palm Dog at Cannes, so that's quite a feat for a performing canine.
Yeah. Um, I really enjoyed this film too. And what I found really compelling about it, that it was just beyond the mystery of how the husband died, but to your point, Bo, the marriage. And it just you never know what goes behind closed doors and people's relationships. And I also found it really interesting that the gender roles were reversed. And when they were having the big fight that was recorded, and the husband is saying, I gave up all this, I made all these sacrifices, and I gave up doing this and that, and moved us out here, and I'm trying to put the house together, and blah blah blah. It was very reminiscent to what generally female or the wives often would say to husbands. And so I found that fascinating. And I don't know if European culture is a little bit different than American culture, and they're more progressive or not, or I just found it just fascinating that that friction was there, and the reversal of the genders. So that was really fascinating. And and there the court system also seemed like you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And here you're innocent until proven guilty. So again, I don't know if the French judicial system is you're guilty first, but boy, they just came at her. They
Oh,
were
absolutely,
They sure did.
ruthless.
absolutely. Yeah, the avocat general, prosecutor guy, boy,
Hmm.
he was brutal.
Hmm. Hmm. So Kevin, what did you think about the film? What are your
Um,
thoughts?
this is an absolutely outstanding film. I watched it, like Bo said, in Toronto, and I rewatched it a few weeks ago, and it was as great as it was the first time. It was even better on a rewatch. I I think the strengths of the film are things we both already mentioned. Sandra Huller is she would be my pick if I had a vote in the Academy. She'd be my vote. All respect to who I think would be my next vote, Lily Gladstone. Sandra Huller, her ferocity, just to sustain the level of ferocity in her performance for 2.5 hours. Which, by the way, if you're scared of long movies, this is one of those 2.5 hour movies that feels an hour and a half long. It flies by. But when she's calmly describing events that taking place, there's you can still feel that anger, not anger, but just the ferocity of her beliefs. And when she's the scene you mentioned with the fight, when she's testifying, it feels like giving a testimonial of her philosophy of life and how things should be and how the world works. It's just off the rails ferocity. I mean, it was an incredible performance. I what I took away from the film was, and Bo kind of mentioned this, their marriage is really exposed for the world through this trial. But what I found was throughout this film, so many people are trying to explain what happened in this marriage and what happened on the day that they found her husband fallen to the ground dead. And everyone is trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together when they have such a very small part of it. So even though this woman's marriage is put on display for the entire nation to see, it really spoke to me like the way we behave, especially now after social media, our need to explain things when we don't have full information, like when we're siloed off and we only have a tiny piece of the puzzle. We have this drive to have to be able to I don't know if it's to be right, but just to have some sort of explanation. And obviously, it's the court system's job to figure out what happened. But I think it was a really nice commentary on just the way we interact through social media and through politics and through a lot of avenues in our world. I thought beyond just the drama, the social commentary is just outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And everybody was an expert on her relationship with her husband, which I just found so fascinating. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it, was it because it was their role as they're giving testimony? Was it their role to just assume that they knew, or was it again another gender thing where because she was a woman, and I don't want to harper that the gender roles too much, but just because they were just being male dominant and dominating her, and she was not allowing it. But also, I'm wondering what you guys think about in some of the argument, as the argument is escalating, and she's telling her husband, "You are not a victim." Sometimes it felt a little gaslighty to me, a little bit. But also, though, there was a lot of truth to it too, because he chose to make the decisions that ultimately got them to where they are now. And so it just feels like, she gave him this latitude, and now he's complaining about it. But now that he's expressing to her his suffering, she's kind of, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. What are your guys' opinion on that?
I'm so glad you asked that, because first of all, I want to say again, like, whether or not, she did it or not, like, I would have killed that guy. He was so whiny. Like, I would have pushed that guy out the window myself. But no, all kidding aside, to answer Micey's question, it's really interesting, and the best way I know how to answer it is sort of mine and Kevin's reaction to the fight in regards to our own marriages, because I know there was a line when she said to him, she said, I don't believe in reciprocity in a marriage. And then Kevin said to me sometime after the film, he goes, there is absolute reciprocity in the marriage. Of course,
Yep.
he starts talking about like Lisa and everything and the kids. And then with me, a very small part of the fight reminded me of Jason and I. Not that we're volatile, not that we're anywhere close to being that couple, but we have said similar things to each other. Like I have said to him, like, I wish something would inspire you. I wish something would move you. That would make me so happy. So I also, going back to what you said in the beginning, Marcy, I think I never went there. It never occurred to me that when you mentioned like the whole gender reversal thing, that never occurred to me until you mentioned it, which I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kevin, what are your, oh, go ahead, Bo.
Yes, I would like the floor for a moment to respond to Bo's comment about the husband being, what was the word, wussy or wimp?
It was whiny. That guy was a whiny bitch.
Whiny. There you go. It's funny. Like it's true. We did have that conversation after seeing the movie, and I think that after watching the movie, the two characters are very, very different people and have extremely different views on how to run a marriage or a family. And I think what I find is you kind of have to have the same outlook, right? Like I did tell Bo, like Lisa and I both operate more from the husband's perspective of, what can I do for you? We fill each other's cup. Like, what can I do for you? But like, it was, yeah, I mean, I think I didn't totally side with the husband. And what makes the scene that we're all talking about so outstanding is that even though I don't agree with Sandra Hüller's character's viewpoint in that argument, a lot of her points make real sense to me. They're completely valid. So I don't know, like I can't, maybe you need to have, two people on either side. I don't know if that works. I think you do need some yin yang involved, but that's a lot of yin and not a lot of yang.
Well, I also found it interesting, excuse me, that she was the one who was having the affairs. Again, stereotypically, it's the husband who generally, not always, but generally goes out and has affairs. So I thought that was really interesting. And she was very nonchalant about it. Like, well, yeah, they have to.
She was like, I told him. I told him I was with these women.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. It's not cheating if they know.
Right. True. And I wonder if that's cultural. She's German and he's French. I wonder if there's a cultural thing there. Of course, that's not being Europeans. We're not exposed to that. But I'm just wondering if that had any kind of play. So any more thoughts about this film?
Well, again, you brought up something that never occurred to me. Like the whole, I think it's the Gen X thing and culturally in the US, which is why you're bringing to my attention the whole gender reversal thing, which did not initially occur to me, which all of a sudden I find extremely fascinating. But yeah, I guess one final thought, it's not, I don't know how significant it is. I love that it's being nominated for like foreign film. Like it's like for the Spirit Awards, it's nominated for foreign film. It was nominated for foreign film at the Globes, and it won. But it's funny, the film is largely in French, but it's also like largely in English. So, which I think is really interesting. It's considered a foreign language film, but much of it is English.
And English is the neutral language.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be.
Right. Well, yeah, she was like, I'm not French. You're not German. We speak English. This is the bridge that we're crossing here.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So what stars would you give it, Bo?
Oh,
Or
this is a five.
X's?
This is a five stars completely,
Hmm. And
without a
Kevin?
doubt.
I think, my initial thought was 4.5. But then I kept thinking, like, Kevin, what are you taking half a star away for? And I can't find anything to take half a star away from. So I'm going 5 as well.
I'm going 4.5.
Okay.
Just because I don't know, fives just has to be, and this is nearly perfect,
Mhm.
but it's not quite a 5, so I'm giving it a 4.5 X's. So, but yeah, I think we're all in agreement. This is a really great and powerful film.
Mhm. And
So,
ironically, just to come off or go off of Bo's idea that he was saying, this will not be up for an Academy Award in Best International Feature. France did not select this film for the Academy Awards. I believe there's a film called The Taste of Things that they nominated. But yes, ineligible for Best International Feature at the Oscars, even though I can almost guarantee you're going to see it nominated in other categories.
mhm. Well, it was a beautiful film. I mean,
Mm,
it was just absolutely gorgeous. And the acting just along everybody held their own, especially the kid. Was it Milo?
mhm.
Milo, the dog. He also he also held his
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
Everybody top of their game. Um, so Bo, what would you pair this film with if you were to program the block?
I'm kind of hoping I can go last
Okay.
at this with
Oh,
this question.
Okay, Kevin, what do you think? What are your two, or what are your films that
well,
you
let's see. I went back and forth about which Gen X film to pair this with. And I thought I had selected my final choice out of the two, but Bo's making me a little nervous. I'm gonna go with what I thought. I'm gonna go with I think the classic "Did She or Didn't She" movie from Gen X times, and that would be Basic Instinct.
Ah, okay.
A very different film, and you can hear it in the titles, right? Like Basic Instinct. It's all about sexual tension, the primal drive. Where this one, the French gives it a little level of sophistication on this side of the pond, but even anatomy is a science word. Anatomy of a fall. This is a very, I wouldn't say, well, to a degree, clinical, but also with a lot of passion, but put through the justice system as it should work, I assume, in France, because they certainly took a lot of liberties with how the justice system should go in Basic Instinct. But yeah, I would think it would be an interesting juxtaposition with that common "Did she or didn't she" theme.
Mhm, mhm, okay. Well, I'm pairing it with Kramer versus Kramer. Again,
Ooh.
going with marriages
Wow.
just don't know. And then they also have a son. And
Yeah.
not that this couple really, I mean, they fought a little bit about the son, but he wasn't a pawn necessarily,
Mm,
like Kramer
mm.
versus Kramer.
Nice
But
call.
I'm going to throw in a bonus, and this is
Ooh.
not a Gen X film, but I saw it when I was a Gen Xer. I mean, when I was younger. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Mm.
Again, it's that the clashing of the the marriages, the spouses.
That is
Uh,
my all-time favorite movie.
really?
Oh wow,
Yes.
nice.
So, Bo, your turn.
Uh,
I'm
all
dying.
right,
I can't wait to hear this.
no, this is really weird. I'm picking Reversal of Fortune. I'm going
Mm.
early 90s like you, Kevin. Uh Also, like, and it's the role reversal. It's the typical, what Marcy was saying, the typical, like, did he do it? Did Cosmo
Mhm.
Bulow kill Sonny? did Jeremy Irons kill Glenn Close? Whatever. I just think it's an interesting pick because like comparing Klaus von Bülow to like Sandor Voltaire is like really, they're just completely different, but both accused of the same thing. And I just think it's interesting to compare the two.
Yeah, I think all three blocks are really good. Really
Yeah.
good.
Very cool.
Yeah. I really like I again, Marcy, you were really enlightening me to things that have just never occurred to me. Like the whole Kramer versus Kramer, and that's fantastic. It's
Mhm.
Thank you.
and you're sticking with the marriage, you're sticking with courtroom drama sort of thing. That's great. And Kevin, like who doesn't love Basic Instinct?
So it's a wacky pick. Like it took me a bit to come up with that. My other option was, I was just thinking it was such an incredible courtroom scene after courtroom scene. So I was just thinking of great courtroom scenes, and I was thinking maybe A Few Good Men. But I think Basic Instinct kind of, I like the angle of the woman of mystery, because I mean that's one thing I found so fascinating in Anatomy of a Fall. Like, and another great thing about her performance is just she is so good at not tipping her hand as an actor. Did she do it? Did she not? I just thought that was one of my favorite aspects of the movie.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to Holdovers. Kevin, can you give us a synopsis?
Sure. The Holdovers is a term given to the boys at a private school somewhere in New England, who don't have anywhere to go over winter break. Their families are flying to Europe. They're doing something else for whatever reason. They can't go home. So there's always one teacher assigned with the cafeteria staff to hang out over winter break. And the Holdovers this year are many people, but we focus on Paul Giamatti's character, who plays an uptight, kind of lost his zeal for teaching professor, kind of old stodgy professor. We have Divine Joy Randolph playing the head of the cafeteria, and they really focus on Dominic Sessa, I believe his name is. He plays the teenager who is the predominant holdover out of all the holdovers, and it's a story about those three people. I found this film way more impressive than enjoyable, right? Like I think it's a masterfully made film that, for whatever reason, and I haven't really come to a final conclusion, didn't land for me emotionally as much. There are certainly parts of it that landed emotionally for me, but as a whole, I found it, yes, much more an impressive feat of filmmaking. One thing, the acting, Paul Giamatti, he's been around long enough. I think you kind of just expect greatness from him whenever he's on screen, and you get it. Divine Joy Randolph has not been around as long, but I've seen enough for, like, in Dolomite's My Name and Only Murders in the Building, to know that she's probably going to be great, and she definitely is. She's amazing in this film. Lots of awards so far in award season for the both of them. But I think just the performance that blew my mind the most was Dominic Sessa's performance as the student. He has never really acted before, and he is, like I said, on stage with Paul Giamatti and Randolph. It's just, I was astounded. How did he not get blown off the screen? I mean, not only does he not get blown off the screen, he completely holds his own with the two of them. I found that fascinating. Like I said, the filmmaking is next level. I really love the story structure. How it feels. I feel like it works the way that recollection and memories work. A lot of the scenes seem to end abruptly, and then there's what I found kind of awkward time jumps from scene to scene. but it felt to me that's kind of how memory works, right? Like when you remember a 2 or 3 week period of your life, you don't remember every moment. It's kind of a jumble of significant moments to you, you know? So and the establishing shots of this idyllic northeastern town are just beautiful, you know, kind of like the way you would remember something like that, you know, like the cinematography is so good that it feels like you're, you know, when you revise your memories to remember how something looked great. That combined with the 70s grainy film stock that they use, yeah, it feels like someone's reflecting on this, that it happened long ago. And I one of the more fun things I found myself thinking about after the film was, whose recollection is it? You know, I think it could be any of the three main characters looking back on this time. Um, yeah, I think you know, David Lynch is the master of making films that are dreams, and I think Alexander Payne here made a real masterpiece of memory, how memory feels. What about you two? What do y'all think?
I appreciate what you just said about it being kind of a memoryscape type
Hmm.
of situation. I didn't think of it that way. Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Um, Overall, I really did like. In fact, in my notes, I wrote down the first word, nostalgic.
Yeah.
So, so kind of in line with what you're saying. You know, the writing is great and Divine. She did she did do a really great performance, but I would say that let's see, the I think it's on Hulu. There's a High Fidelity series,
Mm.
and she played the Jack Black's character.
Oh
She was
wow.
phenomenal in that. Phenomenal in that. So if you get a chance, go see the High
Oh yeah.
Fidelity
Oh,
series. And yeah, she I think she was a better she gave a better performance in High Fidelity than in this. Granted, High Fidelity was a series. There's a lot more room to breathe and expand and perform. Um, but the just the character range is much more massive in the High Fidelity series than this one. But still, she's really a phenomenal actress. And I agree, Kevin, that kid just coming out of nowhere.
Unreal. Unreal.
And he looked older than what he looked older than his teenage years, but I think it served him well because having a father who's institutionalized and his mother kind of throwing him away,
Hmm.
that will age you as a young
For
person.
sure. Mm.
So I really appreciate the subtleties in his look and his demeanor and just the way he was always trying to be cunning and you could just see his wheels turning and just trying to turn the situation to his favor always. Um, so yeah, that's what I got to say about it. Bo,
Nice.
what about you?
I will agree with you. I mean, as far yeah, with the both of you. Dominic Sessa is incredible. Well, I mean, for a breakout performance, I mean, it's pretty incredible. I can't praise Divine Joy Randolph enough.
Mhm.
I I watched. She was a guest on the Daily Show late last year, and she was talking about
Mm.
this film and this role as Mary Lamb, and she was saying, how does a black woman from Boston talk in the 1970s? And so what she basically did was she listened, she studied how Donna Summer spoke because Donna Summer is from Boston.
Oh wow.
And I thought that was incredible, and it made me like love her performance that
Mm.
much more. And but
Wow.
but yeah, you know, to build on what Marcy's saying, you kind of see her everywhere now. She's really just on fire. And if I can make a prediction, I think she's gonna get supporting actress for the Oscar. I really do. And I'm rooting for her to to get it as well. Paul Giamatti, I had to watch this movie a couple of times. I am not the biggest Alexander Payne fan. I definitely think this is one of his better films. In my initial viewing, I thought, okay, the Paul Hunnam character, Paul Giamatti's playing, grumpy guy. That's, oh wow, what a what a stretch.
Shocking.
But I watched it again, and I think I had a little more of an appreciation for his performance in the second viewing. Like, I've never seen him do that like that. He had did you notice he had those googly eye things in the film?
Mhm.
But really, I've never seen him do that before. So that was interesting, and just revisiting the performances and just the three of them, just spending time together, and I and sort of the Paul Giamatti character just learning to, I don't know, be more of a less less uptight person, I guess. So but I definitely, yeah, Divine Joy Randolph is my she she's the highlight of the film for me.
Mm.
So, Kevin, how many X's would you give it?
I'm going to give it 4. I'm gonna give it 4 X's. And again, it's interesting, Bo. You said you rewatched it. I didn't really have a huge desire to rewatch this, but after just hearing you all talk about and discuss it, maybe I need to. Maybe one more viewing and I'll find what that emotional piece that that would connect me to that film that I'm missing. So, that's again impeccably crafted film across the board. Every single element of filmmaking is outstanding. But yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.
Bo, how many X's?
3.5.
Okay.
And I think I'm picky, and I think that's pretty good for me.
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but there's room for improvement. Not improvement, but we'll just 3.5. I don't need to justify. It's just 3.5. So, Kevin, what would you pair the
All right.
what would you program the block?
So my Gen X film that I would pair with the Holdovers. One thing I did really love about this film is that it shows you that the people who are going to make the biggest impact on your life, the people that you can connect with, are sometimes the people that, if you had predicted who those people would be, are the last people you would ever guess. I love, the motley crew of these 3 being stuck together and finding out that, yes, that person who I just dismissed either through stereotype or because they're my teacher who does nothing but terrorize us, and he can't be human. These people that you just kind of brush aside in your mind turn out to have, like I said, just some of the most impactful influences on your life. And I think that's a sign of growing up. When you start those barriers you start to pull those down and really open yourself up to the possibility of everyone being an influence, which is why I kind of think this is the Dominic's recollection. But anyway, going with that theme of you never know who's going to make a difference in your life, I am going to pair this with another holiday classic, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Ah, yeah.
Steve Martin, John Candy. Both those guys had written each other off, I'm sure, at the beginning. Well, John Candy doesn't. He doesn't write anyone off in that film. But I think it's another really cool, neat exploration of, people coming around and bringing, like I said, those barriers, those walls down, and accepting others and watching themselves grow through their interactions with that other person, their relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bo?
I gotta go last again. I'm sorry.
Okay. No problem. Okay,
We
so
apparently need another meeting during the week to figure this out. Oh, or did I miss one?
No, no,
so I'm gonna pair it up with Sideways
Mm.
because Jim Motti plays another writer, a teacher even, uh, grumpy, breaks down his barriers. And then also American Splendor, where he
Hmm.
plays Harvey Picar,
wow. Oh, okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
another grumpy writer artist, which Giamatti, why not? Seems to be working for him. So those are my three. So Bo, back to you.
Uh, okay, this might be another interesting choice. Uh, I'm going with the same director, Kevin. The
Oh,
Breakfast Club.
nice. Yes, yes.
So, I mean, just because they're all stuck together.
Mhm.
They've got like Saturday detention, that sort of thing. Uh, they all have their own issues. A couple of them are kind of quote unquote rejects, and there's the popular kids, the jock, the prom queen type, the juvenile delinquent, and um so I mean I think that's just how I would compare. They're a motley crew, which is how I would compare them to the three in Holdovers. So and they all just they're stuck together and they have to deal with each other.
That's awesome. I love
So
it.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
glad. I'm
I'm
glad.
I'm happy you went last.
No, I have to like really think about it. I had something else in mind, but I was like, no,
Mm.
no.
Okay, and so for this episode, our final film is American Fiction, which is Jeffrey Wright. I said Jeffrey Rush. Jeffrey Wright um, plays a professor, a writing professor, who is disgruntled and is also trying to write his book. And uh, also, his mother is ill, so he is on sabbatical, goes home and hangs out with his sister, and his sister is kind of getting him up to speed and as to the issues with their mother. And they also have an estranged brother. And then uh, the name escapes me, his character's name.
Monk.
Monk. Yeah.
Monk. I know.
Yeah.
I knew it was kind of a jazzer name, but I just couldn't remember Monk. So he goes to a writers convention, and uh, an up and coming writer. She's played by Issa Rae, and writes a hit novel, which mm, doesn't sit well with him. Just the way it portrays the African American characters. And so, however, he ends up writing a book that is farcical, and he goes into, yeah, creates a nom de plume. And of course, to his dismay and shock, and also somewhat delight because he needs the money, the book takes off. So it's kind of a misidentity type of situation. And so it's just him trying to reconcile with the popularity of this book that he really kind of wrote as a farce, and popularity, but then also dealing with real life issues. His sister passes away, and she was the primary caregiver for their mother, who was suffering with dementia. And so just kind of adulting, as what we all are facing as we get older. So overall, I did enjoy this movie. Um, but I think my favorite character was the sister, played
Mhm.
by, oh, what's her name? I see her face. Um,
Tracy Ellis Ross.
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names. I see faces, but I'm horrible with names. She was my favorite character, but she was very, very um in it for a short amount of time. And but it's she kind of gives a true portrayal of how usually it is the females and the families that have to take care of the aging parents. And so what happens when the primary caregiver disappears? So I like that subplot. Um, but I also just really like the whole um he had to write something because he needed to write it and it became popular just despite everything that he wanted to write. So I enjoyed that. Not that it was farcical necessarily, but there was some comedic levity in it. So what about you guys? Bo, what do you think?
You you are you are like continuously like enlightening me, like this whole gender reversal thing with you. Like again, I am not going there with these movies. Like it's amazing. Like it's fascinating. Like it's I definitely, Kevin and I have both agreed. Like and you probably are, Marcy, a little irritated too. We were both sort of irritated that Tracy Ellis Ross, she kicked the bucket, fairly early on in the film, and it just, she was such a great character, and I feel like maybe they could have done so much more with her character.
Mhm.
Uh, I am not a huge fan of this film. I don't like completely dislike it, but you may have heard me say this before. It's very audience appealing. It's almost like too audience appealing for me. And it felt like it was for like direct to prime sort of a thing. Although it's it's been having a good run in the theaters though. So but I I will agree. Some performances are pretty good. I appreciate that Erica Alexander was nominated for supporting in for the Spirit Awards as Coraline, the girlfriend of Monk, and I thought she was a pretty thoughtful character. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Again, it was just too audience appealing for me, and I sort of made this joke, like right in the middle of the Toronto National Film Festival. I told TT and Kevin, I said, "Oh, this is gonna win their audience award," and like lo and behold, it did. So
Which is basically the
But
whole point of what the books, it just not that it doesn't have substance, but the audience appeal. Okay, so just because it's audience appealing, does that make it great? Is that piece of work great? So yeah, just kind of a kind of mirror of itself. So Kevin, what do you think?
um, yeah, I like this film. I really liked it. And it's kind of the opposite issue that I had with the holdovers, and I have very similar feelings to Bo, I think, on this. I really enjoyed the film and connected with it on an emotional level, but I just had there are some issues. And I think the issue that Bo was speaking about, the way I saw it was its tone. I I really think I think it would have been a better movie if it didn't have the tone. One film I thought of while watching it was Get Out. That's both a critique of the woke white liberal who thinks, I'm not racist, and if everyone were like me, the world would be such a better place because there would be no racism. And both American Fiction and Get Out shows you that's not true. The issues go way, way deeper than we realize. And I thought, Get Out made such a statement and horror is so incredibly such a valuable tool for social critique. And because of the lighter tone in American fiction, I felt like it didn't make as much of an impact with its commentary as it could have. And again, I find myself thinking about it like I'm beaten up on this movie in my head for not going in the direction I wanted it to. American fiction chooses its lane, it goes down that lane, and it did it very well. It's my issue if I wanted them to be in a different lane. It would be their issue if they chose to be a lighter comedic film and did it poorly. I don't think they did what they wanted to do poorly. I just think I wish it were something very different. And of course, with the meta commentary there, I'm like, is this like me? Like I'm consider myself a fairly woke white liberal dude myself. Like, here I am I white splaining this movie to because I really shouldn't be. So yeah, I think maybe the movie did work better than I originally thought. Maybe it was more incisive because it's getting in my head that much. Yeah, I think they just kind of, like Bo said, they played it for audiences. They went for mass appeal rather than really getting their hands dirty, I felt like.
So, Bo, what'd you think about the conversation that Jeffrey Wright and Issa Rae had towards the end when they were judging, they were both judges? What'd you think about that conversation?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because she felt that his book was depicted, negative stereotypes, preyed on negative stereotypes of Black community, and he felt that same way about her story, about her book. I think it was a good conversation, the dialogue between them, because I think it helped sort of build your perspective. You get to see each of their point of views, and she may have been coming from the whole, like, this is overly, like, masculine, maybe, and I think she was probably defending hers more because hers was from the feminine point of view. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. Okay.
Kevin, what did you think about that conversation?
The thing I loved about that conversation is it shows how complex racism is. When we're being raised as Gen Xers, we were taught to be colorblind. We were taught to be nice to your friends who are different colors than you. And if we were colorblind and treated everyone nicely, then racism just goes away. And I don't want to get too into the conversations. I think it comes at a great point like you said, near the end of the film. And I think it really shines a very interesting light on everything that had happened before that. So I'm just going to say it was a phenomenal job of showing how complex these issues are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it was also just that point really elevated the film much more intelligently and just much and introspectively. So yeah, that was a really good moment in the film.
Yes.
Any other thoughts about the film before we rate?
I will say my favorite scene in the film is when when Monk is in his office and he's developing the story, and then he starts imagining the characters, and Keith David shows up as one of the characters as Willie, and I love Keith David, and I love seeing him show up in anything, and I just, anytime you put Keith David in anything, it's always a nice touch, whether you see him like back in the early 80s, like in The Thing, or or the his bit parts in like Nope, and then seeing him in this, it's just fun to see Keith David. I think he's such a great actor, and he always plays like fun characters.
Mm-hmm. So what rating would you give it, Bo? The film?
Um, I'm giving it three stars, three X's.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm gonna go with a triple X or two. Three X's for me. Although I would put a little asterisk next to that I really do recommend the movie. Like I said, I think that three is more a reflection on what I wanted the movie to be rather than the quality of the movie. Like as Bo was mentioning, the audiences in Toronto sure loved it. So I would definitely, even though it's my lowest star rating of the night, I would definitely recommend the movie.
Mhm. I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. So three triple X's.
Mm.
Three triple X's.
Wow.
So
Is this a
Kevin,
pornographic film?
I was gonna say, yeah.
so Kevin, what would you pair it with?
Okay, I'll keep this short and sweet. I'm gonna go with another movie that is a very insightful analysis of how tenuous and difficult the relationship between creator and audience can be. Misery.
Wow.
Yep.
Ooh, nice. Nice. Okay. Okay.
And both movies show art can be pain.
True, true.
Creative act is a painful one sometimes.
Well, I'm going to go with the theme of hiding behind an identity, and I'm going to program it with Jumpin' Jack Flash
Mm,
and Roxanne.
mm,
So
Oh,
these are the
yep.
I'm going to program it with.
those are two super fun movies. Those are
Yeah.
fabulous. I love Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can dig it up somewhere in the streaming world. What about you, Bo?
I'm gonna pair this with Do the Right Thing.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Also, mainly because it's Do the Right Thing deals with bigotry and tension and things smoldering and I would pick that because it's sort of the heavier, probably more I think more profound pick as far as American fiction, which is more, it's a lighthearted take on racial tensions and things like that. So uh
Mm-hmm.
so I that's that. I'm really just going with the first thing that pops into my head. I'll be honest, I didn't really think long and hard about any of these picks.
Yeah, the way I pick them is whatever when I'm watching a film, whatever pops up in my mind, like, oh, this reminds me of blah blah blah. That's usually how I come up with it. Sometimes I do have to think really hard because that doesn't happen. That something popped up, then I got to really think hard on it. But yeah, but I'm like you, just go with the flow. What about you, Kevin? How do you pick your programs?
Honestly, what I do is I pick one element of the film, and then I feel embarrassed. I usually Google. So like I Googled best courtroom movies of the 80s when
Hmm.
I was thinking about Anatomy of the Fall and just kind of went through that. So yeah, I'll find like an element or a theme that I pick up, and sometimes I can think of it. Like Misery was one off the top of my head. Like that one came right away to me. I had to go through a big list of courtroom dramas, and it's funny as I went through the list of the top, I think it was like the top 80 1980s courtroom dramas. I was amazed at how few I've actually seen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I just pick a theme or an element. Because I kind of like the juxtaposition in mind, right? Like, like creating art is painful, but there's couldn't be two more different movies than Misery and American Fiction. And I like to see different things kind of clash that have a similar thread to them.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I think this concludes this episode of the Gen X Lens. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
You
I
had
would
to bring.
say
Oh,
go
sorry,
go
Kevin. No, go ahead.
No, I want to go last this time. You go.
No, Marcy, you had to bring up Jumpin' Jack Flash. I'm thinking of her like when she's first talking to Jonathan Price on her terminal, and he thinks like she's another spy or something, and he's asking her like, I need you to get more things from her. And she's like, get what? I work at a bank. I just, Whoopi Goldberg was so genius in those days, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah. But as far as final thoughts, yeah, I mean, the three movies we discussed, American Fiction, Not a Beautiful Fall, uh, The Holdovers, go see them, everyone. If you haven't already, go see them.
Yeah.
Find ways to see them.
Yes. I maybe I shouldn't have gone last. I was gonna say that too. And I think, they're all gonna be talked about throughout award season, which we've got almost 2 months left until the Oscars. These are all definitely going to be up for a bunch of awards on Oscar night. And people complain about when the Oscars finally pop up, they're like, I've never seen any of these movies. And I think the issue with that is like a lot of these movies aren't things that everyone really wants to see, right? They're not, the Marvel, they're not the made for mass consumption, really. They're more art house. But you can't go wrong, I think, with any of these three movies. If you are a little intimidated by, art house or Oscar bait films, these are your gateway films. Watch all three of these. You'll love them.
Mhm. All right. Well, guys, thanks again for hanging out with me and talking films. And everybody, stay tuned until next time, and just keep watching movies. All right. Bye, everybody.
Enjoy.